Well, over the last couple of months I've been building my own Custom Shop Telecaster Style guitar, something that I would hope would equal the Fender Custom Shop guitars that I have here in the studio, but at a much lower cost and produced using fairly basic tools. Now in part 1 I took a look at the foundation of any guitar project, and that's the body and the neck choices available and the reasons why I made the choices that I did. Now in part 2 was sealing, priming, first coat neck lacquer stage and Danish oil for the fretboard. Now it's important to get untreated wood finishes sealed within a very short time of purchase due to the risk of moisture ingress, especially in a humid or damp environment. In part 3 was the colour coat, placing decals on the headstock and final coats of amber lacquer. In part 4, the accessories, hardware and electronics, along with the process of aging chrome and nickel. In part 5 I prepared the headstock, neck and fingerboard for that relic custom shop look and feel. In part 6 it was time to relic the body, apply conductive paint to the cavities and a final clear coat lacquer and set aside to dry out. In part 7 the neck and the headstock, a final sand, cut and polish, and onto drilling all the necessary holes and fitting accessories. In part 8 it was time for the body to get the same sand, cut and polish treatment, followed by lacquer checking along with drilling and the fitting of all the accessories. In this video the guitar is now complete and it makes its debut, but it first needs to be set up before being compared to my Fender Custom Shop Telecaster 61. Hello viewer, my name's Stu. Please do check out the rest of my channel as it covers my return journey back to playing and recording guitar after a 40-year break. Now if you enjoy the content, please do think about subscribing. Click the bell for notifications, like, share and do comment below. It's always good to hear your stories, your experiences, and a big thank you to all those who take the time to be here. So in part 9 of my custom guitar build project video series, coming up, number 1, the doorbell rings and I take delivery of the final part to complete the build project. Number 2, time for a setup. Number 3, what does it sound like? And number 4, conclusion, final thoughts. So without further ado, number 1, as always, if you haven't watched parts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 and you're thinking about building your own parts caster style guitar, I do encourage you to check those videos out. They should prove helpful. And again, for those new to relicking and the very different opinions voiced on this topic, do check out the video I did on that under my Journey series playlist. Now for those to whom it concerns, cover the dog's ears because the doorbell rang. And I take delivery of a large box, and of course inside is a rather fetching Fender hardshell case in the colour blue, of course. So I did a bit of searching and lo and behold, on sale from an authorised Fender dealer was this very nice Fender hardshell case for either a Strat or a Telecaster. Typical textured vinyl covering with stitched leather ends and carry handle. Gold-plated hardware appointments, and inside is the familiar soft furry material in a golden orangey sort of yellow colour. The large case pocket for bits and bobs. Now the case is a genuine Fender product and you can see the Fender badge on the lid front and the Fender labelling inside. It is, however, made in China, and I will say the case, it is nice, but it's not the same quality as the American-made D&G cases that you get with the Fender Custom Shop guitars. The leather does appear to be thinner and easier to damage. The case overall, it just doesn't feel the same quality in your hands, so I would say care needs to be taken with it if you want it to remain in nice condition if you buy one of these. But it should be noted that the D&G cases are considerably more expensive, and after all, I couldn't get one in blue anyway. So for some of you All of that, it's not important, but I mention it for those who like case details. On to the guitar, number 2. So first off, it's time to put some strings on the guitar, and here I've chosen a set of Ernie Ball 10 to 48 gauge. Some of the tools I'll need to set up are in this Fender toolkit that I bought some years ago. We have wire cutters, a variable screwdriver tool, feeler gauges, a steel rule, a capo, an Allen key for the truss rod and saddles, a tape rule, a string winder, and I'll be using this Power Peg motorized winder by Ernie Ball, and finally a good quality tuner, and in this case I'm using a TC Polytune 3. So the string setup, feeding all the strings through the back body ferrules. As these are vintage tuning pegs, I run the E string just past the 2 tuning posts and cut, taking the end and pushing it down into the tuning peg hole, and then bend the string in a sharp right angle away from the nut and bend the string to the right around the peg post, carefully winding the string round and down the post as you can see here. Carry on up to the last E string, which being thinner is a little tricky. You need to use your fingers to hold down and guide the string as it winds on to the post. And now to fit the final part of this guitar build, the vintage style string tree, taking the same position on the headstock as the 52 Telecaster. Having drilled a pilot hole, the string tree is now fitted into place. With the strings on and given a quick tune-up, it's time for the setup. So number 1, checking the neck relief. With the guitar flat and no pressure on the neck or headstock, the idea is to hold down the E string on the first fret and with your other hand hold down the fret at the other end of the neck. This is to enable a measurement to be taken at the 7th fret. Using the capo to hold down the first fret, a hand to hold down the last fret, I'm checking that the string is not too close at the 7th fret. The actual gap required depends on your playing style. A general rule is using the feeler gauges 6/1000ths of an inch or 6/1000 of a gap between the string and fret if you're light-handed, or 10/1000 if you're heavier-handed. Here you see that my 10/1000 gauge is not able to go under the string. Now there is a gap, as you can see me bouncing the string up and down, but not enough, which means I need to have more relief in the neck. Now by turning the truss rod to the right, this will tighten the rod and the left will loosen the rod. A quarter turn at a time is all that's needed to see what's going on. Now I have my truss rod to give me a clearance of around 8 to 9/1000 gap between the string and the fret. So number 2, string height and intonation. Looking from the side at the 17th fret and using the steel rule on the top of the fret, the string height should be set at around 2 millimeters, using the small Allen key to adjust the brass bridge barrel. The thin E string should be no lower than 1.66 millimeters. Of course, action height is a personal preference, and this is a general setting. Now once I have the string heights done, I check the barrel distance from the nut. Now using a tape rule, measuring from the nut to the center of the brass barrel, where the B and E strings lie, I adjust the measurement to 25.5 inches, and that's the scale length of the guitar. I then set the other 2 barrels slightly behind each other in a diagonal pattern, and this is an approximate starting point for intonation adjustment. With the guitar plugged into the tuner and picking an open E string, I set the tuning. I then press down on the 12th fret of the E string to see that in this case it's actually quite sharp. So detuning to make adjustment easier. Using a screwdriver, I move the barrel back and retune. And now you see it's pretty good. It's not absolutely perfect, but enough for me to move on to the other strings, and I will return later to make final close adjustments. Now, while checking intonation, often what is done is using the harmonic 12th fret. What I would say is it's not as accurate as when you actually press down the string on the 12th fret. So number 3, the bolt-on neck trick. So here's a little trick often done on bolt-on necks once strung up. Release the 4 neck screws just enough to allow the neck to butt up really tightly against the body neck pocket. Now that the strings are going to pull the neck down, and thereby this will increase the sustain and resonance, and then you tighten the screws back up. Number 4, pickup height. Now, as this is a vintage style pickup fixing, the pickguard needs to be removed to set the neck pickup. The thick E string needs to be held down at the last fret, and the distance between the string and pickup cover should be around 3.2 millimeters as a starter, and the thin E string, that distance should be around 2.4 millimeters as a starting point. Now, coming to the bridge pickup, that's usually a little higher since the tone is thinner from this part of the guitar, so using the same measurements as a guide and then just tweak to be a little bit higher. Number 5, the nut slot check. First, press down on the 3rd fret and then press another finger down on the 1st fret. There should be a gap. Now, a general gap clearance of around 15 thou minimum and 18 thou maximum, and that's what you're looking for. If it's more than 18 thou, you're going to need to file that particular slot. If it's less than 15 thou, then that nut really needs replaced. And so number 3, how does it sound? Well, I will say it sounds like a Fender Telecaster, and it sounds like one that has Texas Special pickups in it. Now, the guitar is quite well set up. I still have to do a few wee tweaks, but it's good enough to get this video done. So here are some tones. So there's a wee sample of tones, and like any guitar, it depends on how you shape that tone on the guitar itself, the amplifier, its settings used, and of course any effects pedals used, and the way they are set up. So that leads me to number 4. conclusion and final thoughts. Well, I'm going to be making a part 10 because at the very start of my custom guitar build project, video number 1, the question was, could I build a high quality Fender Custom Shop relic style guitar using basic tools at a greatly reduced cost? So in the next video, I'm going to compare this Custom Shop Bluebird, as I called it, with my Fender Custom Shop Telecaster models, as well as a Fender Professional Telecaster model, and ask 3 questions. How does my project guitar compare? Was it really worth all the work that went into it? And what did it really cost when all's said and done? Now, I've also been collecting questions, opinions, and discussions that I've had with people over the last few months, and I'm going to answer some of those as well. Now, even if you're not thinking of building a guitar yourself, I do think you'll find that video helpful. Particularly if you're thinking of modifying a guitar, there's no doubt it's always nice to play a well-crafted instrument, but often I think there is a tendency to get lost in the myriad of videos that make you feel you're missing out and the need to buy this or that to reach your goal. So remember, any questions or comments, do please let me know so I can put them into that video number 10. Please do think about subscribing, hit the bell to get notified for part 10, like and share, and as always, it really helps the channel out. Do check out my channel playlists, which cover my journey back to playing and recording guitar after that 40-year break. Lots of equipment reviews as I seek out the gear that I use in my recording, and I'm sure you'll find many of those helpful or interesting. So whether you're a newcomer, an ongoing player, or like me, an old hand returning to guitar playing, I always take time to engage with folks who take time to comment. So do think about commenting below. And until next time, the journey continues. Do take care.